Good afternoon and welcome, Sunflowers. I am Rosemary, and you are watching Good Journeys Tarot. Thank you to those who are joining us live and to those watching in playback. I hope that you will enjoy today. As always, I'm going to start off by telling you guys what's been going on this week. First of all, I wasn't going to have any decks to share with you because I've spent most of the week reorganizing this ever growing collection and trying to make more space. And so I got two new bookcases, which are about the same height as that one behind me, to create a desk downstairs for my working altar and where I have more space to read, because I had just been keeping my altar on top of a shelf like this. And it was basically more display than actually being useful. And I used that bookcase, which had been where my altar was, to actually move some of my working decks and books that I use every day downstairs where I'm at with my pets. And so I now have more space. The other thing that I did, and I saw this on YouTube, I don't remember who shared it, or maybe it was Instagram, but, I had been buying tins and doing images for decks that needed a box or something on make playing cards, and it's just outrageously expensive, right? But I discovered on Amazon through someone online that they have these storage boxes, which are almost exactly the size of tarot cards, with a clear opening, so you can actually see the backs of the cards and know what card is in there. And so they come 10 in a box for less than you would actually pay for 110 on make playing cards. And so here you'll see where I have my deck of the bastard in this deck. There is a little bit of extra room, which is great for those cards that are just a little bit bigger than others. And also, Tarot Stash always distracts me. Thank you very much, Gerald. We'll talk about that in a minute. And so it is great. I did find that certain decks, the cardstock is so thick that the cards don't fit. The only deck I had that problem with that I needed a box for or a container for was the Good Karma Tarot. And so that was really great. I was excited to find these and to have those. I also finally got some fanning powder to try out on those decks that are just hard to separate. And several people had suggested this. I will say that it was a time-consuming and messy process. And it did work for decks like, say, the Llewellyn or some cheaper indie decks where you have a coating on the cards that either, whether it's glossy or matte, that it did definitely help. My Goblin Tarot had started to stick, and now I can actually shuffle it easily. And so that's great, but it does not help with just really bad cardstock, like that rose petal finish that everybody loves. Great to feel, cannot work with those cards. They just will not separate for me. They don't shuffle well for me. They're pretty, but they're just useless for reading for me. And fanning powder does not help. So Gerald, yes, I will post that link for this. They're on Amazon, or I'll message it to you. As Gerald suggested last week about having my logo behind me, I moved the shield here, which I've always had in this room above my desk. Usually I'm looking at it. And so I did this a long time ago. I found this shield really cheap in a decorative store, and I painted it with the Rose Cross design on it, and have always had it in my tarot room. So we'll see how we like that. And if it goes well, then I will probably change this artwork to the pentagram that was over on this side before, because I do like it and want you guys to be able to see it. Fanning powder, Amy, is what they use like in Vegas and other places with playing cards so that they slide easily and they don't stick. It's really just like, it's powder, but it's like ultra fine powder. It is not, and like I said, it was a messy process to do the cards. It doesn't take a lot. You just have to get it all over the cards, the front and back, and then I kind of had to brush it off and that kind of thing. And it just makes them slide easier than normal. So the last thing that I got was actually the result of a conversation Wednesday. You may remember I did a live with Grace Callis about her deck, the Lightworkers deck, and Janine Worthington was there, and we got to chatting about her deck, the In Between Tarot, and about her coming on my channel. And so I acquired it this week, and we'll be working with it over on Instagram. So check out the post I did yesterday introducing this deck, and this afternoon I'll be doing a full flip through of the deck over on Instagram. As I work with it to get to know it, so I can interview her here Wednesday, the 23rd at 2 p.m. So do check that out. The In Between Tarot by Janine Worthington. She will be with me in just a week and a half. Hello, Calla Lily, Gerald from Tarot Stash. So happy to have you both here. Ed, so tomorrow is Valentine's Day, that day of romance and love and chocolate and all of that good stuff. But forget about that. Today is about betrayal, about grief, about rejection. It is all about the Three of Swords. And I couldn't be more excited to have a very enthusiastic person with me today to talk about this card more in depth. Please join me in welcoming Amy from Strength Reverse.
Hello. I am so happy to be here, and I am very, very psyched that you picked the Three of Swords just in time for Valentine's Day. I think that is just goes perfectly.
Well,
and
good.
I learned what fanning powder is. Who knew there was an invention for that?
Right. Yes, I hadn't heard of it until someone mentioned it online when I was talking about sticky cards. And I decided to give it a try. It's amazing the things you can learn just from watching videos, like that you can buy these really inexpensive containers on Amazon with the clear windows.
I know. Those are perfect for traveling because I keep my cards usually in bags, but sometimes if I travel or something, I want it to be into something a little more sturdy.
Absolutely.
Hi, Kristen.
So let's see. Kristen needs your shirt. Sorry, my tarot card said no. All right. So as we always do, we start out each event by sharing cards that we have in our collection that speak to us, particularly about this card, which I've already mentioned. Usually we associate with betrayal or with heartache, that type of thing. And most decks actually will stick with a version of this image. I mean, it is so iconic. We see it in media all the time. People have it as tattoos, which I've never quite understood why they would want it, but it's there. Yes, I did include the Fyodor Pavlov because this is a beautiful card that actually uses an anatomical heart versus the more clip art version that we typically see in my collection. More and more these days, I see decks where they actually put the swords in a person. And I never understood why there was no person in this card. But as I thought about it, I realized that, if they did that, then perhaps it would be too much like the Ten of Swords, right? About, actual physical attack on a person or being done in, when this is actually about much more than that, as we'll talk about. And so there is the Sorcerer Bito, which has it going through the person's heart, which is lovely. And this is the Modern Love. I did like the way this was depicted, the shattered glass with the daggers. And then this one with the swan from This Might Hurt. So what types of cards did you have?
Well, of course, I had to pull from the Robin Wood deck because that's my gold standard. And it's very RWS. Obviously, it's pretty standard, but her guidebook, as Gerald knows, because Gerald's, I don't know, I've had this deck for, 20 plus years. And on Gerald's, I think he was on my channel and he said, do you have the guidebook? It had never even dawned on me to look for a Robin Wood guidebook, but I love it. It's perfect. And so this is what I picture as the Three of Swords, but I do have a lot of cards that are a little more interesting. This is probably the most gruesome. It's the Mott Tarot. And I know a lot of people don't like that kind of imagery, but I think the Three of Swords should look a little severe. It should look a little painful because it is. And
so
then
Tarot Stash, like you, does love the Robin Wood.
Yeah.
And Jason said that this is one of those cards that has to be right in a deck for him.
Hi, Jason. Yeah, it is one of those cards. If it's not unpleasant enough, actually, I kind of don't trust it. This actually, I don't love that Robin Wood didn't do something a little different, because it is just almost a copy of the RWS,
Well, speaking of unpleasant, have you seen the Urban Tarot?
I have not.
So if you look at this, it took me, I didn't notice this until I read her guidebook this week, but this is a Thoth-inspired deck, and you'll see here liquid going down the drain. It's actually blood, and if you look, there's actually a razor blade there on the side. So where someone has hurt themselves. And so this can be a little bit of a triggering card for some people, I think, because it's not just about the end of a relationship, but it's also about that mental experience that we have, with heartache and with rejection and all of that.
It sticks around.
Yes.
And this one's pretty, I don't know how gruesome it is, but it's pretty severe. That's the Santa Muerte, because it's one of the skeletons stabbing the other one in the back. Mm-hmm. Hi, Jason.
Yeah, and betrayal is definitely one of the things that comes up with this card. This is from the Transparent Tarot. It's still pretty gruesome, even though it's a simple image. This person's like stabbing themselves in the gut, basically, over what's going on in their life. And this is the first time I've actually pulled this deck out. It's hard for me to show online, because it's transparent.
Yeah.
But now I have
that deck, and I need some of that fanning powder, because the cards stick together a lot in my deck. It's pretty old, and
it's
so
in the first edition.
Yeah, I think so.
Mine's the second. It doesn't stick, so it works really well. I actually have this one that we talk about heartbreak a lot, and this one is from the Edvard Munch Tarot, being distinct in that it's from all of his images and paintings rather than actually being created specifically for it, but it does really capture it without the blood and gore, right?
That painting is called Love and Pain, or there's a I don't know if that's an actual painting of his, but those two people. And it's also referred to as the vampire painting, because she's, hugging him and her red hair looks like blood. And so it's a pretty severe looking painting. And I love that artist.
Yeah. Have you seen that deck?
I have not seen the deck, but he's one of my favorites. And so, I don't go looking for decks. And so
It's called the Edvard Munch Tarot for Relationships, and the person who did it basically took imagery from all of his paintings, and it's basically just crops of various paintings of his.
And most of his paintings are pretty angsty, they're pretty moody and kind of a little bit sad. And I don't know if you had any Pippish versions of the Three of Swords.
I didn't have any I was going to show.
This is from the Sacred Circle. And I guess I like that the third sword throws it off balance. discord. There's kind of this rebalance that happens in the Three of Swords, which is always kind of a pain to deal with in your life when something changes or your perception changes, and then you have to regroup. And that can be pretty traumatic and stressful.
So this is the Pocket of Peers. This to me kind of hints at this idea of just the way this image looks to me, hints at miscarriage, which is one of the things that can come up with this card. Just like divorce, painful separations. Just the way she was holding herself. That's what I thought of. This was the first time I actually connected with the Three of Swords in any real way, was when I saw this image. This is the Goblin Tarot, and they have dog companions throughout. And in this particular one, his dog died in battle. And I really could relate with that idea of grief or heartbreak, having buried some dogs and cried over them, being a pet person myself.
Yeah. And then you have to get used to, life without them. It seems so different. In your mind, you think it should be one way, and then there's this huge change, and you have to get used to your new reality. You're walking through, Gerald, you said, the Transparent Tarot?
Yeah, he's going to do a deck casual. It's where he has other people on and they all talk about the same deck. We did something similar with the Golden Girls Tarot with Jason a while back. We got through the major arcana.
We got through the majors. We'll have to do the suits. Yeah, the Transparent Tarot kind of stresses me out because there's just too many options. It's too many options. I need you to limit those for me. Mm-hmm. This is the Japaridze Tarot, and I love it's one of those circus wheels where the woman would, the sword thrower throws swords at her. Yeah. And so there's someone's hand who's about to throw that sword.
Yeah, while grief is one reaction to the rejection or separation that can happen with this card, another reaction is, this. From the mystic garbage. I did really think this was a really interesting depiction for the Three of Swords when I saw it. Giving the finger to love.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone goes through that stage when something ends, like that, the anger phase. So Natalia from Ouroboros, I just tried to look for this video, but I think her videos are taken down.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately. She made a video about the Three of Swords, and I did a VR to it. And it was one of those videos where I was like, God, this sounded genius. And so I was really proud of that video. But what I like about the Three of Swords that makes it so interesting is that it is in the suit of swords, which is everything from the neck up. And I think for me, it's a mini tower moment. Something breaks down, your perception is shattered, and that's pretty heartbreaking. That can be a really, punch to the gut. And then you have to regroup, which we see in the Four of Swords. What I find interesting about the Three of Swords is that 2, 3, 4 run of cards are so related. You have this status quo in the 2, and then something happens in the 3 where your perception is just shot all to hell. And then in the 4, you have this rest and regroup. And so that's always what I think of when I think of the Three of Swords. You thought something was going to be one way, and then you find out it's not going to be that way. And you have to deal with that loss and that grief and the anger, and it messes up your whole life. And you think, was that all in my mind? kind of a thing. It's just such a, I guess, a powerful card. where you really have to deal with that and you just don't. It's like the denial is shattered and you just have to deal with things and you don't want to. Sucks. It sucks.
Right. So I have 2 more cards. These are by far my favorites. Okay. What do you have some more of there?
I have 3 more.
Okay. All right. Well, the first one is the Bone Stone and Earth Flesh. So everybody get your deck envy going because you can't get it. Sorry.
Oh, is it done already?
So this is yeah, it's been sold out for a couple of years. You can probably get it for around $800,000 on eBay. There is a sketch version of this deck, which is way overpriced in my opinion, but 3 make playing cards. But this is called the Charred Heart, and so here, your heart has been hurt, right? But the thing about that is that this card, unlike the 5 of Cups that I did a while back, where you want to move past things, you want to incorporate this grief into your life and learn from it and grow from it. And you really get that idea with this sprout coming out of, the charred heart, the ashes that are left over, so to speak, and incorporating now into new life the things that you learned from this event that you've gone through.
Yeah, I really like that one because it's the emphasis on, you can grow from this and work with it.
Right.
So I have the Murder of Crows tarot, and you can't really see the tips of the swords, which I don't like, but it's basically stopping this bird's flight.
Right.
And then I have the Tarot of the Weird, which is the 3 of Cutlery. And this deck cracks me up.
Interesting.
And I really love that card. And then I have the Moon, Tarot of the Moon Garden. And I don't love this because I think it's too pretty. It needs to look more painful. It's just nice and balanced and pretty, and it doesn't look painful at all.
And speaking of pretty, this is probably one of my favorites. This is a new deck for me. Weird experience trying to get this deck. In theory, it's still available. The website's still up. You just can't find the website readily. But I got it from someone who thought, like me, that it was out of print. And that is the Tarot of the Holy Light. I haven't actually studied it to understand all the imagery in it, but some of the cards really do speak to the understanding that I have. This one, rather than a heart, it's actually the cosmic egg that has been pierced. Basically, damage has been done to, our universe, to all that we thought was going to be, and that was going to happen. And I just love this card. I think it's a beautiful depiction. One of the things for me that was important when I looked at this card and tried to recreate it is that in the Smith-Waite, there is this balance in the card. It is a very gray card, right? There's the rain, there's the gray clouds and everything. But there is this balance, hinting at the idea that, yes, there is pain, but that pain is important. It's not just something extra that we need to throw out. That is something that we need to incorporate. And so I wanted to make sure that my card also had this kind of balance. There is a symmetry despite the fact that there is an uneven number of pips here in this particular card. So, and 3s are all about expansion and growth. And I think it's important that we remember that way, especially when we look at this card, where typically we only see the pain.
Yeah, that is there's a silver lining, I guess, in every difficult card. And, if you don't have these moments, you can't appreciate the happier moments as much.
Right. Absolutely. So speaking of this image, and this was my coloring this week, I tried to create like a stained glass broken heart kind of look to it. But apart from that, I stuck pretty much with the traditional imagery. The clouds, I ran out of gray. And so if I'd known I was going to run out, I think I would have colored this one gray and then did the other two with the little lines around it. But hindsight is 2020, don't we know? Yeah. So the Golden Dawn called this the Lord of Sorrow. For me, when I first started looking at this and the keywords for it, I had to figure out what the difference was between it and the Five of Cups that I had already done. And it kind of came down to me to that aspect of what you move past versus what you learn to live with and incorporate into your life, at least for me. So there's also the idea of, as we've mentioned, bereavement, pain, heartbreak, but specifically, infidelity, divorce, and miscarriage, which I've mentioned previously. But ideas that I hadn't ever really associated with this card that actually speak to me more were the ideas of inner turmoil, not necessarily related to a relationship, but personal turmoil, being excluded or growing distress, in your mind, being betrayed in any way, not just romantically, also loneliness, abandonment, rejection. And so this is where I actually finally connected with this card. And I feel like with the card that I created, I kind of captured some moments in my life, which I'll talk about when we get to that card. But I've been studying the tarot for 15 years, and I never really thought of this card in that way, because the main keywords that you see everywhere are, betrayal
Heartbreak.
and heartbreak and that type of thing. So are there any other like keywords or ideas that come up for you with this card in the upright?
Yeah, for me, this card is just, I think I'm shook. Like something has shaken me up, and it's kind of painful. It's like when you should never meet your heroes, because that perception of them is just probably what you've built up in your mind is not reality. And then the truth hurts. Like things just got real is what I think of when I see this card. It's kind of like, I think I said this in that video, that when you're in the Two of Swords moment and there's this status quo, and sometimes you can just not deal with something. It's like people who are afraid to go to the doctor about something, because once it's said out loud and you hear the truth, you have to deal with it, and it becomes real, and your whole reality shifts, and your perception has to shift, and you have to incorporate that, and it has to be part of your life, and you're going to have to figure out how to deal with it. And that is a really, it can be in a way heartbreaking. It's just, almost kind of a type of grief where you just have to learn a new way. It's your new normal. And then you have to integrate it and move on and see what you can get out of it, and see if you can take advantage of what you're learning from it. So that's what I think with this card.
Absolutely. You made an interesting analogy there that personally related to me, but I won't talk about that today. It is very nice when things connect for you. And as things have started to connect for me this week, as I've dived deeper into this card. So astrologically, this card is linked to Saturn in Libra. Libra, of course, being my sign. And so Saturn is about our boundaries or our limitations. And of course, Libra being about balance, and being that air suit. When air is limited, it can feel like we are weighed down. And that's kind of a little bit of what we get with this card, I think, with the gray and all, and the swords in the heart. I mean, can you imagine how heavy it would be to have holding up a sword in your body? Not something people have to experience nowadays like they did in the past, for sure. Yeah. So, and I've recently been studying Kabbalah, so I always like to talk a little bit about the tree of life and where this falls on there. So this is in Benai, which is wisdom or understanding. and it's in the world of Yetzirah, which is that world of air, the world of thought. And so, this is really about coming to an understanding, working this out, integrating it into our life, right? And so, sometimes it seems like, this painful experience is like the end of the world. But it's actually a place for us to birth wisdom. Whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Makes us stronger.
It is the association that I get for this card with the Tree of Life.
I did read something, Rosemary, about that, and I think it was showing the RWS version, but it corresponded the different points to the Tree of Life. Like you could map it out on here. And it said the only thing missing was the 10.
Huh. Interesting.
I'll have to find out what book that was in, because I, read from a few books, and I'll have to take a picture of it or something and send it to you.
That would be an interesting read, because that kind of does connect. We're connecting everything except for the world, so where we need to integrate this trauma that's happened in our lives. So interestingly, this sword, the symbols in here, we are used to seeing clouds and rain as that idea of sadness or depression. Also, someone mentioned the Downpour of Emotions. So, and this is a really unique card in the swords in that it involves the emotions, unlike many of the others. It is more connected to them than any others, which is why we see that heart, which is about emotions and feelings. A lot of times I think people specifically see it as love, which obviously is an emotion. And my pug has just come in, so I'm making sure he's behaving.
Well, one thing I wrote down for this card was nervous breakdown. And I think if you repress your emotions at some point, it gets to a place where they just come out and you're going to have to deal with them. And there's just too much to stay in there. So I think that's a very Three of Swords thing too. You just have to deal with it. It can't be ignored.
Yeah. So this is one of those cards where in my reading, when we talk about it being reversed or the shadow side of it, there are two very distinct different ways that people look at it. One being the idea of healing or moving past that trauma and pain, having integrated it into our lives so that we can grow. The other was actually, things getting worse, and just failing to deal with this trauma that's happened in your life, denying it or avoiding it altogether, which can lead to confusion or mental alienation, that type of thing. What are your thoughts about the card reversed?
Well, it just depends on what pops into my head when I see it reversed as to how I'm going to read it reversed. But for me, a reverse can either be a magnifier, like you really need to take a look at this and really need to do all of that work. Or it can be, just a reassurance that this is temporary, even though it feels like you'll never get over it. It really is something temporary, and to focus on what the gift that comes out of this.
Right. Absolutely.
Which in that moment you probably don't want to hear, but still.
Yeah. So before I pull our card for next week, do you have any other thoughts about the Three of Swords that you want to share?
I don't. I love this card. It's, even though it's kind of, I don't want to see it in the reading really, I think it's one of the more interesting cards in a deck. But I'll skip it in a reading. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. I like what Carol really said. You're forced to deal with your emotions rather than intellectualizing.
Yes. Absolutely. I totally get that. Yes. So what is going on with you right now? Do you have anything coming up on your channel you're excited about or on Instagram?
I have lots of ideas that I'm kicking around in there, and I still have a lot of my Christmas gifts to show off. So I have another deck to show, and I also have a few of the like uh, goddess provisions boxes where you get a bunch of treats in a box that I'm gonna show off on my channel, and hopefully more golden girls. Hopefully we'll get through the suits because I really love that deck. And I don't know, who knows, Rosemary. I'm not as organized as you.
Yeah, I don't think that's the
You always
case.
have a plan,
Thank
and
you.
I'm just kind of like, whatever.
So it may not be obvious, but I fly by the seat of my pants. It's just like, do things at the last minute and make it happen. I have to say that you are a phenomenal promoter. I mean, you really got the news out there this week that you were doing 78 cards in 78 weeks.
Well,
Obviously.
it was a fun image to work with, you know.
Well, and it has been great having someone to actually go back and forth with and share and talk with on the lives the last couple of weeks. Gerald was my guinea pig, and he did an amazing job as always. And he is excited to see you, I, and Jason again talking about the Golden Girls. So
Yes.
hopefully we'll be able to do that eventually. I have not decided what I'm doing this Wednesday on my channel. If I'm doing anything, it may just be a deck flip through. But I do again have the interview with Janine Worthington of the In Between Tarot coming up the next Wednesday, the 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And then next Sunday, we will be talking about this card. Oh, wow. Another Saturn card, another card of our limitations. This time, the 10 of Wands.
Oh, that's a fun one.
The
That's a
burdened
fun
one. So if anybody out there in YouTube land wants to come on and chat about this card and share some of your favorite images next week, do let me know either in the comments for this video or through Instagram or Facebook. We are talking about these cards all week when people are interested on Good Journeys into Tarot, which is the Facebook group where I share not only these cards, but other things about tarot and things going on my channel. So I want to thank Amy for being here again. It was so nice to have you and get to chat with you again. So sorry we missed each other when during StarCon, but hopefully we'll get to meet sometime in the future.
Someday we will actually be able to attend a conference in person.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to let Amy go, and everybody, thank you for being here and joining us for the Three of Swords. Oh, you know what, Amy? We forgot to look at my card.
I was going to say, like, didn't you? But I didn't. I thought maybe she did that on purpose. I don't know.
No, so I completely forgot. All right, guys, let me pull up the card because Rosemary has lost her mind. Three of Swords. Okay. My poor brain. All right, we're going to share here. You never know what's going to happen on a live, right? Look at there. That Tarot Stash is on it. This one. All right, let's see. Make sure that everybody can see that. Yes. There we go. So this was the final version of the card. And the reason that it ended up this way was because I was just really struggling. I feel like that the RWS is so iconic, but I really kind of wanted a person in it. And yet I still wanted it to be balanced. And so my first thought was I should bring in either the imagery from the moon, where I have a woman in distress, which was me, or I should bring in the person from the Five of Cups, who was also used to represent this idea of grief and loss. And so I started playing with it, and I actually went through several versions of trying to create a unique heart with things jabbing it for myself. And finally, I was like, you know what? This is an iconic image. Why don't I just put it on the back of the sweatshirt, on the hoodie, because who doesn't just like to throw on a hoodie when they're depressed and sulk, right? It's cozy and you can hide yourself, and then just basically keep all of the other imagery from the original. And as I did this card, as happens occasionally, I realized, you know what, these are moments in my life where I stood on the sidelines, where, there weren't people who shared my interest, or I just failed to connect with, other people. And so I, was basically rejected. Everybody has those moments, when they're growing up, where they just don't feel like they're a part of the things going on around them. Even sometimes in adulthood, right? I mean, we have moments where we have this expectation of being involved in something and enjoying something, and then we just fail to connect with people around us for whatever reason, and experience loneliness or rejection, those types of things. And so it kind of reminded me of those times where I just kind of ended up standing on the sidelines, not able to participate in things. So what are your thoughts, Amy, now that you've seen the final card?
I really like it. I like the hoodie, and I like, that the focus is still on that heart, and that what you just said about, feeling like you're just not belonging, that really hits home with me, because I've always felt like that my whole life. Like, they don't mean me. That, like, everyone got something that I somehow didn't get the memo about. And you feel like you're not involved. And a lot of that, I think, is perception. But I really like it. I like the gray and the black, and then you have that striking heart that pops out, because that really is the focus of the card.
I will say I'm still a little bit on the fence. I kind of feel like it needs to be gray, but I guess this one, the person does pop out more. I think, contrast is nice, but then I kind of wanted this card to feel depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not 100%
I do
sure.
like the gray. I remember I saw that on Facebook, and I do like the gray.
Yeah, I did darken up the red because it just seemed too bright for me on the previous edition of the card that I posted. So really now it's between this one and this one. And I may go back and forth for a while before I actually make a decision on it. But this card is done. And next week, I will be moving on to the 10 of Wands. So if you're interested, anyone out there watching in playback and talking about that card, do let me know via Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger, or in the comments below on this video. Thank you again, Amy, for being here, and Tarot Stash for reminding me to talk about my card. Until next time, everyone, good journeys.
Bye.